Theron and Calliope were deep within the ancient temple at the base of Mount Olympus, trying to unravel the mystery hidden within the old texts. The dark corners of the temple were covered in the dust of centuries, and only the faded reliefs on the walls reminded them that this place had once been sacred. Calliope carefully unrolled an ancient parchment, reading it under the flickering candlelight. Her eyes caught a familiar symbol, a golden circle known as the emblem of the gods. "Theron, look," she whispered excitedly. "This symbol marks the sacred place where the gods gathered their powers. The seal could be here." Theron joined her, examining the parchment closely. Beneath the symbol was an ancient Greek inscription. It spoke of how the gods once ruled the world from Olympus but were sealed away, destined to return one day. "Does this seal only bring about the gods' return?" Theron murmured, trying to grasp the deeper meaning of the text. Suddenly, the temple's air grew cold. Theron and Calliope sensed a presence, a heavy wave of energy floating through the air. The temple walls began to tremble with a deep rumble. Theron instinctively reached for the hilt of his sword, his eyes vigilant. A beam of light suddenly appeared in the center of the temple. It quickly intensified, forming into a figure, tall, powerful, and godlike. Its eyes shone with a wisdom beyond this world. Theron and Calliope gazed at the being with a mixture of awe and fear. "I am the messenger of Olympus," the figure said, its voice deep and resonant. "The seal has been opened, and the awakening of the gods has begun." Calliope held her breath as she listened to the messenger's words. "The Olympian gods, are they really aliens?" she whispered. The messenger's eyes darkened as if displeased by the question. "We are far more than humans can imagine. We are beings that exist beyond time and space. The myths are merely shadows of our true power." Theron, trying to process this new information, stepped forward. "Does this seal only bring about the return of the gods? Or is there something more?" he asked. The messenger's face responded to Theron's question with a slight smile. "The seal indeed brings about the return of the gods," it said. "But that is only the beginning. The return of the gods will alter the balance of the world. This will be a great test for humanity." Theron and Calliope exchanged a silent glance, feeling the weight of these words. "Humanity has always forged its own path," Theron said resolutely. "We do not have to bow to the will of the gods." The messenger's smile widened, but there was a threat behind it. "We shall see how the gods respond to your brave words," it said. "But remember, the power of the gods is far beyond what you can imagine." At that moment, the temple walls began to tremble again, this time more violently. The dust that had settled on the ground seemed to hang in the air. Theron turned to Calliope and took her hand. "This will be our fight," he said firmly. "And this time, the gods will not see humanity as easy prey." Calliope nodded and stood by Theron's side. "Together, we will win this war," she said with courage. "Even if the gods return, humanity will not live under their yoke." The messenger's eyes darkened once more, the smile fading from its face. "The coming battle will be not just a clash of powers, but a war of minds and hearts as well," it said, and then the figure slowly receded into the shadows of the temple, disappearing. When Theron and Calliope were left alone in the temple, the intense energy the messenger had left behind still hung in the air. This was not just their fight, it was a battle that would decide the fate of all humanity. "What do we do now?" Calliope asked, breaking the silence. Theron listened to the echoes of the temple's silence. "We need to prepare for this war," he said. "The gods are returning, but this time, humanity will not bow." And so, Theron and Calliope decided to embark on a journey to prepare for the great battle that lay ahead. The return of the gods would change the fate of the world, and this time, humanity would do everything in its power to win this war. Theron and Calliope moved forward under the shadow of the dark forces unleashed by the return of the Olympian gods. Their fate was now intertwined with the resurrection of the gods. They knew time was running out. While the gods gathered their strength once more, humanity had to search for one last glimmer of hope. Throughout their journey, Theron and Calliope began to see the effects of the gods on Earth more clearly. Unusual storms erupted in the skies, the seas roared with fury, and the ground seemed to crack with pain. The gods were announcing their return to the world through these signs. Theron realized they were facing an immense power. Yet, he knew they had embarked on a path of no return. To suppress his inner fears, he glanced at Calliope. The determination on her face reminded him that he was not alone in this battle. Together, they would stand against the gods. One night, They set up camp in a dark forest. The sounds coming from deep within the forest seemed like a harbinger of an approaching storm. As they sat around the fire, Calliope broke the silence. "Theron, what will we do when we confront the gods? How can we possibly stand against their power?" she asked, her voice filled with worry. Theron remained silent for a few seconds, trying to gather his thoughts. "No matter how powerful the gods may be, we will not bow before them. The will and determination of humanity can surpass their power. All we need to do is find a way to win this war." In Theron's words, Calliope found a glimmer of hope. But her inner fears still threatened to extinguish that hope in the darkness. "But what if we fail? What if the gods destroy us?" Theron took Calliope's hand and looked into her eyes. "Even if we fail, at least we will have fought for humanity. That will be our honor and courage. No matter how powerful the gods are, they cannot completely annihilate humanity, because we fight with our will." These resolute words eased some of Calliope's fears. They would enter this battle together, and they would not bow before the gods. The next morning, they set out to reach the summit of Mount Olympus. The mountain was once known as the sacred home of the gods. But now, it was surrounded by a dark and menacing energy. As they approached the summit, a divine power in the air weighed down their steps. Finally, when they reached the summit, the temple of the gods appeared before them. Despite the wear and tear of years, the temple still retained its grandeur. The stone walls were adorned with intricate motifs, and the golden symbols above the entrance signified the power of the gods. Just as they were about to enter the temple, a massive thunderclap echoed. The sky suddenly darkened, and lightning began to strike. The doors of the temple slowly opened, and a wave of intense energy surged out. Theron and Calliope recoiled at this energy, but suppressing their fear, they entered the temple. Inside the temple, it felt as if they were in a different dimension, beyond time. The walls were covered in glowing symbols, and a massive altar stood in the center. On the altar stood divine figures. The gods had awakened. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, and other gods appeared in human form but were surrounded by a divine aura. Their eyes focused on Theron and Calliope, filled with both disdain and curiosity. Zeus approached Theron and Calliope with heavy steps. "Humans, your courage is commendable. But do you really think you can stand against the gods?" he asked, his voice echoing like thunder. Theron stood tall before Zeus and replied, "We are here on behalf of humanity. The gods may be superior to us, but our will is stronger than yours. We are here to win this war." Zeus was surprised by Theron's courage. His eyes softened for a moment, but then immediately hardened. "Then let this war between humanity and the gods begin. We shall see who will emerge victorious." With these words, Theron and Calliope completed their preparations. The war had begun. The gods would unleash all their power against humanity. But Theron and Calliope would not bow to the will of the gods. Theron and Calliope felt the weight of the moment as they faced the gods on the summit of Olympus. Their eyes were filled with determination, but beneath that resolve lay a deep fear. The power of the gods stood before them as an immense obstacle. Yet neither of them had any intention of retreating. This was a battle that would determine the fate of humanity. Zeus raised his hands, and the sky grew darker. Lightning began to strike around the temple, creating massive fissures in the ground that shook the earth. Theron gripped his sword tightly and held Calliope's hand. They exchanged a silent understanding. They would fight this battle together. Zeus spoke with a booming voice. "Humans, this is your final moment. You will pay the price for defying the gods," he said, launching a bolt of lightning toward Theron. At that moment, Calliope conjured a magical shield that deflected the lightning. Taking advantage of this, Theron charged forward and struck at Zeus. Sparks flew as his sword clashed against the god's armor, but it was not enough to pierce Zeus's skin. Zeus pushed Theron back, but he managed to regain his balance and stay on his feet. Meanwhile, Poseidon entered the fray. Columns of water erupted from the ground, attacking Theron and Calliope. Calliope raised her hands to control the water, struggling against Poseidon's control. While she battled the water, Theron renewed his assault on Zeus. Theron's strikes began to create small cracks in the god's armor. As Zeus noticed this, his anger intensified, and he summoned a massive energy ball from the sky, hurling it at Theron. Calliope quickly used her magic to intercept the energy, but she felt her strength waning. At that moment, Hades also joined the battle. Shadows emerged from the underworld, encircling Theron and Calliope. However, a light began to shine through the shadows. Calliope drew forth a magical talisman, dispelling the shadows. The talisman contained a powerful ancient spell her father had given her years ago, which she had just remembered. This power started revealing the gods' weak points. Calliope noticed that Zeus was injured and shouted to Theron, "Now, we've found their weak points." Theron made a final powerful strike at Zeus, driving his sword into the god's chest. Zeus's eyes widened in astonishment, his body trembled, and he fell to the ground. Zeus's fall caused a ripple effect among the other gods. Poseidon and Hades were forced to retreat, as the bond between the gods had weakened. Theron and Calliope felt victory approaching, but there was still more to be done. Calliope cast another spell to disable Poseidon's powers. Poseidon's control over the water gradually weakened and eventually ceased. Theron turned his attention to Hades, but Hades had vanished. The shadows in the Olympus temple disappeared with him. Exhausted but triumphant, Theron and Calliope stood victorious. The gods had been defeated by humanity. However, a deep question remained. Had the gods truly been vanquished, or had they merely retreated? What had humanity learned from this battle? As the shadows of Olympus slowly dispersed, the sunlight once again illuminated the temple. Theron and Calliope knew that a new era for humanity was beginning as they looked down from the summit of Olympus. The gods had been defeated, but their shadows would remain etched into the annals of human history. Thus, the battle with the gods of Olympus would be remembered as a legend, one of the most significant moments in human history. The courage, will, and resolve of Theron and Calliope would stand as a symbol of humanity's triumph. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye, see you in the next story.